Hey everyone, so this is Rosewood Season 2, Episode 7, called Lidocaine and Long-Term Lust. And basically, what starts off with at a photo shoot where a woman is having a picture taken, and she, after that particular photo is taken for a particular part of the newspaper, or not newspaper, magazine, um, she is getting ready to set up for another shot that she's supposed to be in, and her boss is like, get her a wig, and she's like, I don't want to wear any wigs, and so her boss is like, fine. Later that night, she goes home, disarms her alarm as she walks in, then resets it, but next thing you know, someone's, buzzes to, get let in. She looks at the video security camera, and sees, I guess, someone she knows, and she then, I guess, lets him in. I mean, obviously, otherwise she wouldn't be dead next morning. But she, anyway, so Rosie and Tanya are waking up the next morning from having sex the previous night, and he's like, okay, well, let's have lunch, or first it's like, let's have breakfast, and she's like, I had breakfast shift at work, so I can't. And he's like, okay, let's have lunch. And she's like, well, we're not going to be able to have lunch because you're going to end up canceling at the last second, so there's no point. But he's like, I'm not going to cancel. I don't think they really make any definitive plans on screen, because I don't remember seeing that. But anyway, so a little bit later, he's taking a shower. She comes in, and she's like, I thought you had the breakfast shift. And he's like, those people don't really pay that much or tip that well, whatever. So I'm assuming they have sex, basically. Via then walks in on Mother and Hornstock together in the kitchen, and Via's mother is concerned. And so basically, Via's like, it makes this a big deal about it, and so Via's mother's like, let's just meet her Hornstock or whatever. And Via's mother's like, well, Via, you're not dating. I'm just concerned about that. And she's like, I'm fine. Via's like, I'm fine. So then Via gets a text about a case. Via then goes to the crime scene, and she's like, Rosie, I think something's wrong with you. Even though he's in a relationship, because he's not his happy-go-lucky self. When they get inside the woman's apartment, you notice the security system and a hole in the wall with DNA in it. Hornstock then gets their attention and shows them that the woman is dead, but standing up like the other mannequins next to her. The woman's name is Karina Radner, and and at the lab, Mitchie reveals that he was married, to the surprise of everyone there. Guess not that surprising. I mean, they then run a talk screen on her, and they find a laceration on her head. Via then tells Rosie and Hornstock at the precinct that the blood on Karina's wall was not hers, and that she also has videotape footage of her floor. Turns out that someone shone a light in the direction of the camera so that they wouldn't know who was going in. Via then tells them that Karina's alarm was turned off right after the video was taken, and then they try to go and figure out who she was shooting with at the photo shoot. Rosie then goes to keep lunch with Tanya because he doesn't want to disappoint her again. Hornstock and Via then go talk with Karina's boss, and her boss tells him that Karina refused to wear a wig anymore, and that's what they kind of had a fight about the previous day. And it was apparently the first time that Karina stood up to her. There was a guy also who came to the photo shoot. Who gave off stalker vibes, according to Karina's boss, but her boss is like, well, I don't remember his face because he has one of those forgettable faces. Rosie makes his way back to the lab, and as he does so, he calls Tanya, but only gets a voicemail. So he's like, why didn't you show up for lunch, the lunch date that we had planned? At the lab, everyone asks how the date went, and he tells them that she didn't come at all because she just texted him saying that she forgot. Yeah, okay. Who will forget to meet that guy for lunch? Like, really? Come on. And then basically they all say that she pulled Rosie. But they kind of put that on the back burner for a second. And it's revealed that Karina had a nose job done within the last month, and the fractures done to her eyes couldn't have been done without some injuries to the perp's own hands. At the precinct, Villa tells Rosie of the stalker and that Karina got a restraining order against a guy named Andrew Myers, but she also found out that Karina and Andrew were previously engaged, and Andrew used to beat Karina. When they get to the house, they find Andrew holding a gun to his head. Andrew is high, and Villa manages to end up getting Andrew to drop the gun. At Rosie's, Tanya comes over and tells him that her ex-husband threatened her by saying if she doesn't come back to him, he will kill her. Rosie then tells her that she and Kayla will stay with him until they fix this problem. I'll get to that whole aspect of the episode later, because I kind of want to get through this episode at the moment. Villa then questions Andrew, and as she does that, Rosie tells her talk about the problem as they watch the interview. Andrew says he got Karina out of her abusive father's house. So basically, it's a cycle of abuse where she went from one abuser to the next, from basically from her father to Andrew. And he also reveals that she got free plastic surgery from because of the abuse she endured from her father. Andrew said he went over to tell Karina that he had changed, and when she didn't believe him, he punched a wall, and that's how his DNA got there. Villa then says that he wants to know why Rosie interrupted the interrogation, and he tells her about Tanya and Kayla moving in, and basically Villa deduces that Tanya has an abusive ex. Hornstock then comes up and tells him about Ken Daughtry, who is the guy who was the guy who Karina was shooting with at the beginning of the episode. Villa and Hornstock go question him, and they ask why he isn't broken up over Karina's death, and he tells them that Rhonda, their boss, doesn't know that they're together, and they've been dating for the last few months, pretty much I guess since Karina broke up with Andrew 6 months prior, and she had gained this confidence that wasn't there before, and then they were planning to leave Miami together. Back at the lab, Rosie finds out from the rest of the team that Karina had liposuction no more than 2 days prior to being killed, and she had lidocaine patches all over her body, or all over the back of her body. Rosie figures out that while Karina was beat up, it was done after she was dead, that's why there's no bruising, meaning someone wanted it to look like she was beat up so that they would arrest Andrew. Villa then tells Rosie that Chase Rollins, director of Operation Uplift, which is the charity that gave Karina free plastic surgery, was helpful with her up until the point that she wanted to know the doctors who operated on Karina. Rosie then tells Villa that they don't need a warrant to get Rollins to talk because he can track the implants right down to the guy who performed the surgery, and whoever did it would be at the fundraiser that the charity is having the next day. Villa's mother then gets at home. Villa's mother then gets her to go out with her, Pippi, and TMI. Rosie is then seen at home helping Kayla with her math as he and Tanya clear the table after dinner when he gets a text from Mitchie, so he goes to the lab. At the lab, Mitchie tells Rosie that there was only one doctor who did all the procedures on Karina, and Mitchie tells Rosie about his marriage after telling him of this revelation, and he's like, well, it's okay if you rush in your relationship with Tanya because it did. However long you rush doesn't necessarily determine how long a relationship will last. Because Mitchie was married for 10 years, and they didn't. I think he said they didn't rush the relationship, but it ended up in divorce anyway. So that's Mitchie's advice for the time being. At the club, Villa doesn't seem to be having much fun at first, but then loosens up. And the next day, Rosie goes over to Villa's house and finds Adrian there. Turns out Adrian was at the club where Villa, TMI, Pippi, and Villa's mother were at. And so they, stayed until, I guess, last call, and then started walking around and went back home and everything and stuff. So, after Adrian leaves, Rosie tells Villa that check the doctor down to one guy who performed all the surgeries, and his name is Greg Hawking. And Greg Hawking is the person who's hosting the fundraiser, and Rosie thinks that he's the killer. At the fundraiser, Rosie goes to talk to Greg, and Villa goes to check out the house. Apparently, Hawking is a fan of Rosie's. Rosie tells him that there's no such thing as perfection, and he can't give it to people, and everything. So, Villa then confronts Ken, who's at the charity event or fundraiser, and asks how he knew Karina had fired her doctor unless he saw her after Hawking had performed a liposuction that allegedly killed her. She had figured out that a picture on Greg's wall was one of Ken before he lost all of his weight. And Villa tells him that she knows that Karina only bought one ticket out of Miami for a fresh start without him. She tells him about the makeup found on Karina's dress, and he runs. She chases after him, and when Villa catches up to him, he surprises her, and they kind of fight out a little bit before she knocks him over the side of the building, but not before she grabs his hand so that he won't fall to his death because it's a pretty high building. And Rosie helps Villa get him over the ledge, and Rosie's like, we know that he's like, I know you beat Karina up after she was dead to make it look like Andrew killed her in case we didn't arrest Hawking on the surgery, arrest Hawking on believing that he killed her via the surgery. So Rosie then goes to after all that, Rosie then goes to Tanya's ex, who is playing chess in a local park. Rosie feigns wanting to play against him, and when he sits down, Rosie's like, grabs his hand for a supposed handshake, and squeezes it very hard, basically. And then he says, like, in around pretty much says, stay away from Tanya, because if you come near her again or threaten her in any way, I'll come back. And then leaves. So basically, for a long-term prediction, since that's the end of the episode, I'm gonna say Tanya's ex is not just gonna go away. That's not just gonna go away. However, I do think that they're gonna, because as we've seen before, I do think that they're going to end up fixing the Tanya situation in one episode, because that's what they've been doing. Because I didn't think that they were gonna fix the whole Eddie murder mystery in the entire episode. In one entire episode. I figured they're gonna drag that out, but apparently that's not what the writers wanted. I do feel like because of they solved Eddie's murder mystery in one entire episode, I feel like it was entirely rushed. I feel like it wasn't really thought out all that much. I thought it was just too cheesy and too simple, and all that. I thought it was way too simple. I mean, it just felt really simple that Eddie's murder was solved that quickly. I mean, I just felt like they had built up Eddie's murder as this big ass conspiracy, and then it turned out to be extremely fucking simple. I mean, it turned out to be that. So I was like, eh. Who knows if this is gonna be, and basically it's the same way with like, well, maybe not the same thing with Gerald's case, but it's pretty much the same thing. They kind of hinted at Gerald not being the guy who killed those teenage girls, and basically they found out that he wasn't the guy who killed those girls in pretty much one episode. Episodes later, I mean, I still don't necessarily believe that he is as innocent as he's claiming to be. I'm thinking maybe he had someone set it up so that he would look innocent when he really wasn't. I mean, I feel like it's too easy to say that he was set up and everything. So I'm thinking that this is like the one thing I don't like about the writers, that they're making it so simple that Eddie's murder was simply solved, even though they made it out to be that he was they made it out to be that there was this big ass conspiracy to kill Eddie, when in fact it was just very fucking simple. I mean, I don't know, it just seemed, and same way with Gerald's case, it just seems way too simple to just say he didn't do it. I mean, when hinting that he pretty much would, when everything else didn't, I don't know, it just seems like it's way too simple to say that Gerald didn't do it. So I mean, I don't know if they've got different writers this season, and so they just decided to say fuck it, and I'm not gonna make this complicated, even though I hinted that it was complicated. I mean, so I'm thinking that it's just I think they have different writers than last season, and they're doing this cop out shit, and it's just like, well, what's the point of making it seem like Eddie's murder was more complicated than it actually was, if you weren't gonna continue with it being complicated? I mean, same thing with Gerald's case. I don't know, it just seems way too easy to say that he committed, he was framed. It seems way too easy. So, I don't know. But who knows, like seeing as how with those two instances they're gonna just make, it's gonna have Tanya's ex just be killed or something, so that he's not gonna be a problem anymore in the future. So that's what I'm thinking, that they're gonna end up having him like end up being killed so that he's not a problem anymore. Just like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're just looking for the cop out and everything. So with these B storylines. So anyway, um, next week on Rosewood, a gang member is found dead, and an eyewitness who can't see faces comes up. But I'm gonna make the prediction that the um, the eyewitness actually can see, actually can see faces, and that he's just making it up because he's the one who actually killed this gang member. So that's my prediction next week. With that said, I'll see you guys next week on Rosewood. Bye.